Hello, my name is Maroun Tabbal, and I'd like to discuss with you my progress report in relationship to Level 2 BIM repository. Now, as I started working on this, the whole issue was about how people could share a repository and how that requires a common high level access control track. So basically, we got something that needs to be extremely open for collaboration but needs sort of a high level of control for security purposes. So these contradicting kind of requirements clashing here. Um, so my sort of naive objective was to first find out what are these exact level 2 requirements, and mainly they centered around the idea of federated sort of partial, sort of discontinuous, some level of interaction and common ground, but also with some emphasis on maintaining a level of security. Um, so then what we have now is basically all this existing sort of drives and cloud-based storage services, some that are sort of expand beyond, all of them actually are moving beyond the idea of just sharing um, file systems, but rather doing kind of including a bit of a workflow. Box was kind of a big pioneer in this area. At the moment, Microsoft Linked is really sort of resolved to provide a very collaborative effort. Every day, it's hard to talk about Google because Google Drive and Google Docs is constantly evolving. Some of them are sort of industry specific, such as Autodesk and Graphisoft. Okay, so when we look at from those who is really compliant in Ireland, there are only three that are compliant. Okay, so basically we have four projects, and their product now is called Viewpoint. We have a site and their product called sort of a doodle, and we got business collaboration, and sort of they're bragging about semantic BIM, and they have these three areas of a common data environment, a data viewer, and a process management, all coming sort of from the corporate sort of document management background. Okay, so the BIM server, there are two types of BIM servers. It's either a really closed sort of central shared model, everybody's working in a very uniform monolithic environment, such as, like inside Revit and AutoCAD 360, or in Graphisoft BIM server, and so on and so forth. And then the other alternative is really sort of this open data model, working with IFC, where basically you have this federated, different, divided, separated pieces, and that they all sort of interact together with IFC. I have revived my interest due from this class in IFC, and as technology is always changing, is going to give it a second look as it seems like it's growing up. Now, in the US and Denmark, a lot more progress has been done. In Denmark, sort of from 2008, we see a really working model with some distributed activity on the perimeter, but a real central model with distributed specialization, such as visualization and model checking, and sort of exchange, so that we have basically all the sort of six pillars of model checking, exchange, extraction, documentation, simulation, and visualization. In the US, where really it's been also more advances have happened. We have sort of the discipline model. You've got the architect the engineer and structural engineering and the mechanical engineer, and their responsibility remain separate, and then they extract basically a paper product, and maybe only for the sake of visualization you have the common ground. Again, these are evolving from an existing paradigm, which is sort of the paper document as the initial initiator. What my sort of ambitious approach here is, and I had to kind of really contemplate whether I want to go that far, but really, if you really think about it, there needs to be a paradigm shift. I'm not sure that we can really just kind of tinker, fix it a little bit, even if a redesign or sort of a radical departure. For me, the building model can be thought of as an inverse of an augmented reality. So basically, in an augmented reality model, we place a model inside sort of the real world, while what we do in a BIM model, we actually have a virtual model that we are sort of superimposing on the real world. Thinking of it from that way, within the context of a gaming paradigm, which is really have done sort of a huge amount of progress in terms of all being in one place in real time, or in delayed time, or in online, offline, seems to me like a great opportunity. And still be able to have these sort of federated independent resources that could control, by virtue of their independence, access. And so some things need sort of a huge gateway and a big padlock, and some things are open like a public space or a plaza to enter. Um, and trying to have sort of smart object from the get-go, the ability to really do algorithms from things that are sort of primitive objects, and be able to have sort of a first and second and third degree generalization, meaning, first degree generalization is, this is a rope. Second degree generalization is a shape, a triangle. A third degree generalization is a concept like relativity. And lastly, the idea of what we think of in terms of a correct reference dimensionality. We keep on saying, BIM is 4D, 5D, 6D. And really, I mean, when we think of the word dimensionality, is a degree of freedom. And basically, we should try to be really consistent in this approach. So, as a degree of freedom, okay, time is a degree of freedom, but it's also sort of a unique degree of freedom with some restriction because it's linear in one direction, meaning so that we could remember the past and not the future. So, we're moving forward, we have archives of the past and projection into the future. This is sort of a linear and not a two-way, the way dimensions of space are. Then we move over to what we call a thermodynamic dimension or degree of freedom, and this is about entropy. And could we really not just think of it in terms of this idea of cost? Yes, I think cost, it does make sense, but maybe it's sort of about energy consumption. So if we have these first principles be really grounded, there's a chance for this virtual world as a mirror world to really work as sort of a fabricated subset of the world as we model it for the sake of extracting intelligence from that environment. Thank you very much. I would very much like your feedback and your discussion about this topic. And thank you very much.